Today I'm going to provide, as Julianne indicated, an overview of the Public Safety Infrastructure Round 3 guidelines and program, as well as some advice around developing a good application under the program. I won't be covering everything within the guidelines, so if you are considering applying, I would recommend that you closely read the guidelines and also the other accompanying resources on our website. Now, the Round 3 guidelines are largely the same as as Round 2, the previous program, and the key objectives intent remain the same. Grants are available to support the redevelopment of existing infrastructure or new infrastructure to help improve community safety, security and confidence in public places. Victorian councils are the only eligible entities, and they can apply for up to $250,000. Whether that be as part of a single application or across multiple applications. So there is a $250,000 funding cap with the program. Multiple locations or project sites may be included within the application. For instance, if you're looking at having a similar lighting project across a number of towns, as we received last year, what we would ask you to do in those cases is to break down a response against the criteria or against those locations, and also to break down the budget, as that makes it much clearer from an assessment point of view. We do say, though, that if you're looking at a very different project type across the application, for instance, a CCTV project in one site, a lighting project, or a SEPTED amenity improvement project in another, that we would recommend that you submit separate applications. It makes it, again, much easier from an assessment point of view if the applications are quite different in their substance. Now, while community safety is often a term used broadly, the focus of this program is very clearly about crime prevention. Now, the types of activities that we can fund include streetscape, amenity improvements, park upgrades, where the focus of the activity is on minimising the risk of crime, such as improving sightlines, removing entrapment points, increasing mixed use or additional use of a public space, increasing natural surveillance. So those types of activities, and that follow safer design and SEPTED principles. We can fund lighting projects where we're particularly looking for vandal-proof lighting sort of initiatives. Security measures, target hardening sort of activities, including window and door treatments. We do say that if you're looking at a much smaller project, that we'd encourage you to look at the small grants program that we run. The Community Safety Fund grants may be more appropriate in those instances where there's a grant of under $10,000 that you're looking for. Given the requirements under that program are a bit less, and there's a streamlined sort of funding agreement that we use. We also fund public place CCTV, and we can, of course, fund a combination of those measures. So it could be a lighting project and CCTV, for instance. There's additional questions in the application form related to CCTV and particular requirements as well around having a letter from an inspector or above providing support for a CCTV project. And where there is a role for Victoria Police in the monitoring or the storage of the CCTV material, that needs to be made clear in that letter of support. Just a brief sort of budget overview. The Department of Justice grant funding that you'd be seeking can only be for infrastructure and the physical works, equipment and installation of the facility. So that is all we can fund through the grant funding that you're requesting from us. There is a minimum co-contribution expectation with this program, which is quite modest compared to most other state government infrastructure programs, and that is 20% of the total project costs within metropolitan areas and 10% of the total project costs within rural regional areas. It is important to note that funding contribution is a part of the total project, as a proportion of the total project cost and not the amount of grant funding that you're seeking. Now, the co-contribution may be, towards infrastructure, but it can be also towards areas such as design, licenses, community consultation, evaluation, project management. We do provide a guide in the guidelines around 7.5% of the project being towards, of the co-contribution being project management. If your project has a higher level than that indicative sort of guide, you'd need to make that clear within your application and justify that, and then we will consider that on merit. The minimum co-contribution must also exclude other state government funding. So that's the minimum co-contribution that I'm talking about. And it should also exclude ongoing funding, for instance, maintenance towards CCTV or future landscaping and maintenance for a park that's been redeveloped through the project. Now, we want to maximise the number of eligible projects that we can consider on merit, so we would ask that councils review the guidelines carefully, particularly in terms of what can't be funded. Now, we can't fund activities that are not community crime prevention focused. So, for example, road safety, water safety and fire safety initiatives. As I mentioned before, we can't fund ongoing costs through the program or mobile CCTV systems. And that is a new change within this set of guidelines compared to last year. We can't fund retrospective projects that have already started or completed, or projects that seek more than $250,000 either as part of a single application or across multiple applications. So as I mentioned before, there is that funding cap. We also can't fund projects that are the primary responsibility of another government program, such as projects that are eligible under the taxi rank safety program. That program, for instance, is still open at the moment, I think until the end of November. So if you're looking for a project that's a safety initiative within a taxi rank, such as CCTV or lighting, you need to apply under that program. We also can't fund security infrastructure for buildings or facilities that do not exist at the moment. And similarly, projects that can't be completed by October 31, 2015. So really, I think in looking at the projects that you may be submitting, looking at those that have a level of project readiness that can be delivered within that timeframe. Finally, applications received after the closing date and time, 5 o'clock on the 21st of February, will not be accepted. We have an online system for the grant applications. And so even if you've started working on an application, you haven't submitted by that 5 p.m, you will not be able to submit after that time. We did have applications last year that were leaving it to the last 30 seconds of the 4-month time frame. And that's taken quite a risk, I guess, given that we're very clear that we will not accept applications. So there's a lot of work that can go into applications, so I wouldn't take that risk, certainly not in the last minute, and do it as well in advance as you can. Now, ultimately, we want to support good projects that make a difference in local communities and with a clear crime prevention benefit. Now, while a good application is no guarantee of a good project, it's a very good place to start. Within our presentations, the forum that we ran last year, and the graffiti grants information session earlier this year, we've continuously reinforced the importance of problem-solving principles, like in developing an application. And similarly, we'll do the same again today. It is reflected across the questions that we ask in the application form and within the criteria that we have for assessing projects. The main components of this are identifying and understanding the problem, matching the solution to the problem, implementing solutions well, and evaluating effectiveness. Another area, I guess, in terms of a general tip, is applications that hang together well. And what I mean by that is that there's some coherence across the application and consistency. So across your criteria response, your project description, your budget, your project plan, that if you're mentioning something in one area, that there's a natural flow between those different sections. What we found last year, that there were some applications that made references to things that then you couldn't see in the project plan or you couldn't see in the budget, and so it immediately raised some questions about that. Some of the very best projects that we had, developed a one-page project logic statement that mapped the relationship between the objectives of the project, the deliverables, the resources that were required to deliver it, and the outcomes that were anticipated. And that was a really simple way, but effective way of just being able to show what the project was doing and the benefits that were expected. Now, applications were far stronger in this area of identifying and understanding the problem than they were in our first round of grants. However, there were still applications that were very vague about what the problem was, and this flowed through the rest of the application. It's very easy, to start with the solution, first, rather than understanding the issue. Now, in addressing this part of the application, explain any relevant context or background that's particular to your local community. Identify who is impacted by the problem and what that impact actually is. And then just sort of asking the question, do you really understand what the problem or issue is, and that you've got a range of different perspectives that can feed into that. In terms of evidence, the strongest applications, again, were able to point to a range of different sources of evidence and substantiate that. Those sources included safety audits, consultation reports, feasibility studies, maintenance and work log records, photographs, and information from Victoria Police. We didn't weight, and we won't weight any one source of evidence more than others. I know that was a question that was raised, last time, through the application process. Victoria Police are part of the, were part of the assessment review panel that we had last year, and we anticipate a similar role this time. And so we've worked very closely with them, around the program. And they'll be presenting today on the issue of providing evidence with an application and what support they can provide. As I mentioned, photographs can be a source of evidence. If you're funded in particular, it's really valuable to have that, that before and after effect. And so I'd encourage people to consider that, because it's a good way of being able to sort of demonstrate what the issue is. As I mentioned before, again, the strongest applications attach sort of that evidence that's talked about. The link between a well-understood problem and proposed solution is the most important aspect of the application, and accordingly it is weighted as such. Applications should be very clear about why the chosen problem is likely to be effective. The very best applications have made this clear after demonstrating consideration of other options. It may be that you're aware of from other councils who've undertaken initiatives in a particular area, such as projects to do with nighttime entertainment precincts, or you may have tried alternatives previously. This is your opportunity as well to sort of connect research that you know of, or safer design and SEPDED principles, with the interventions that you're proposing. And indeed, there were several applications that did that very well by outlining the interventions that they were looking to do and, pairing that up with safer design principles or SEPDED principles. Now, the best applications after evidencing the issue have provided clear, measurable and action-oriented objectives, and they've included some short and long-term outcomes. We should be able to understand what is clearly being delivered and what will be completed as part of the project. And the strongest applications make this clear through maps or designs. So, for instance, with lighting or CCTV projects, making clear where the sites are that you're proposing, and also making clear the product or the specifications around what you're actually looking to sort of put in. So, if it's a lighting project, making clear what type of lighting that you're looking at. Evaluation is an essential part of crime prevention initiatives and needs to be considered from the outset in establishing your objectives. Within the application, you should be looking to sort of collect the following information. It could be around outlining that you're going to collect surveys through your project, or you're going to look at evidence around usage of a particular space, or information around reduced complaints over time, or information from Victoria Police, by way of a narrative comment around the change that may have occurred over the course of the project. As part of the funding agreement, we do ask that councils complete an evaluation report 12 months after a CCTV project or 6 months after a non-CCTV project. And we do follow through on the things that you talk about in your application. So if you're talking about doing surveys or collecting usage information, we do follow up that after the project is finished. So it's important for councils to be realistic and achievable about what you say you can do. Don't promise the world if you can't then deliver it at the end of after the project is finished. Now, the best applications have also demonstrated a strong implementation approach. The grants process is a competitive one, and so we do expect that projects deliver what they're proposing in their application. And the project plan should reflect key stages that you're mentioning in your application. So if there's looking at approvals that may be required, if you're looking at particular consultation that needs to happen, or looking at having pre-surveys, that's correct. Again, just reinforcing some principles around budget. Clearly indicating the expenditure items to be funded by the requested grant, ensuring that the funding is only for infrastructure, identifying whether funding is confirmed or not confirmed. We do expect that councils confirm their own contribution as part of the project. And where there's other sources that are unconfirmed, that may be a factor in us considering the merit of the project relative to other applications, given the strong focus on project readiness. And quotes and cost estimates. We realise that larger projects may go to tender, but we would ask for some indicative costs, I guess, whether that's through a consultant's quote or through similar projects that you've run before, just to ensure that you can deliver what you're saying that you will. Now, we know consultation and engagement is critical to support good decision making, helping to get a range of views to understand the problem or issue, and building ownership within the community to support enduring outcomes. So again, applications are stronger if they can substantiate the evidence of that engagement, specifically how groups will benefit or contribute, and not just form letters. Articulate any roles and responsibilities if you do have key project partners, and demonstrate discussions where approval is required. Now, as with all levels of government, we know that silos occur within, obviously, government, but also within local government. But some of the best applications that we've seen take place where there's effective consultation across council and involving, different areas of council. When I look back at some of the applications we received from Cardinia Shire last year around a park redevelopment project, they demonstrated really effective consultation across different areas, not just the community safety area or the urban design area or the engineering area. And one of the reasons we do have that longer application period is to sort of enable those conversations to occur. So I'd encourage that to happen before Christmas. Just very quickly recapping the timeframes, the program will close on the 21st of February. Applications must be submitted online and inquiries can be sent to that address or by phoning Information Victoria on the phone number that's provided. We do have a range of resources that are available, which I'd encourage people to look at. We will have the videos of these presentations and the PowerPoint slides on the website. The slides will go up within the next few days. The videos will take a couple of weeks. We have frequently asked questions, featured projects, previously funded projects on that website, the safer design guidelines, the guide to developing CCTV for public safety in Victoria, and the presentation from last year's forum in relation to that, the Ombudsman's guidelines on CCTV, and the Victorian Privacy Commissioner's surveillance and privacy information. Now, before I get hooked off the stage, just a very quick hold this date and some blatant cross-promotion in terms of a conference that we're holding next year in conjunction with Victoria Police, the Australian Institute of Criminology and LG Pro and MAV. It'll be on the 10th and 11th of June. here in Melbourne with a range of national and international speakers. And there'll be further information on our website in relation to registrations, and also if people are wanting to put in an abstract. So, yeah, encourage people to attend that conference when it's held.
Hi, Chris. Just what kind of evidence would please you in relation to Council's co-contribution?
Look, we haven't in the past asked for like official, confirmation in minutes or anything. Like basically in the budget form, we have a section where you can confirm that, and we have taken Council's word on that front, given that the application is, it will be part of the legal funding agreement going forward. So, we'll trust you, like in terms of just indicating that. We're not asking for anything further beyond that.
Just a couple of questions. If a council got funding in the last round, will that be taken into consideration in this round? So, i.e., you guys got money last year, we're not going to give it to you this year.
That's a good question. We do have in our guidelines, we indicate a number of overlay considerations that we take into account, and one of those is around whether councils have received a previous grant or grants. And what I answered similarly at the last forum was that is a consideration, but I'd still encourage people to put in applications. We've funded a number of projects multiple times. If you've got a really, really strong application, that will stand on its own merits. If it's sort of like in the midst of the pack and sort of relative to other ones, it could be a factor that's taken into account. But we have funded councils, several times, and I'd encourage people, if you've got a good project, to put it in.
Okay. Will there be a round 4 next year?
In terms of this is the final round in terms of the government's 4-year commitment of funding. Anything further, we will need to build a budget case for, and go forward from there.
My council got funding from the federal government that's unconfirmed. We've got a letter saying we've got it, but due to the election outcome, it's unconfirmed at this point in time. How would we look to put that as part of our matching contribution?
If you've got that, if there is something there, you've got some evidence around that, and if it's a commitment from the new government, I'd submit that with your application. There's still quite a bit of time before the actual applications close in February, so you may have something further official, by that time. But if you've got something there from the current government as an election, commitment. No, you haven't. Yeah.
From the previous government.
Look, I think from the previous government, you'd need to really look. We'd need to look at that very closely, and you may have more information, by February. I think around what the government's intentions are. I know I've heard in other avenues that where there hasn't been a legal agreement in place, the government isn't, obligated to deliver, the previous government's election commitment. So we definitely need to look at that very carefully and follow through with the federal government, in the meantime.
You mentioned under the activities that can be funded are security and target hardening measures.
Yeah.
I'm not in this area.
Sure.
What does that mean?
So that can mean it could be security doors, windows, alarm systems. It's basically interventions that make it harder for an offender to enter a property. Yeah. As I said before, in terms of if you're building a new facility that's not yet complete, that wouldn't be eligible for funding. I mean, partly because of that reason to do with the projects needing to be complete by October next year, and we've had risks around issues with buildings that haven't been, completed.